Welcome to the Airiam Podcast. This podcast covers topics related to cyber and human resilience. The content is geared towards owners and CEOs of small to medium-sized companies, as well as IT and cybersecurity leaders. My name is Art Ocain. I'm VP of Cybersecurity and Incident Response at Airiam. Today is a special Halloween episode focused on what's haunting our customers. Joining me today is our solutions engineer, Ty Hoban. Ty, how's your Halloween doing so far?
Oh man, it's great. It's great. It's early. It's not dark. All the spooks haven't come out yet. So, it's all good.
So there's a lot of time yet for things to go wrong. Great.
There is. There's a lot of day left. Wait till it gets dark and then everything really starts to break.
Exactly. So, Ty, I ask everybody that joins, how do you start your day?
Oh man, how do I start my day? How does anybody start their day? Caffeine. Yeah, I get up every morning, probably around 4:30, 4:45. I get a lot of caffeine in me. I go get a good workout in, and then from there it's getting kids up and starting my day for work. So pretty simple.
You're getting a workout in at least, so
Yes.
that's better than 99% of us these days.
Look, if I don't get up and get my caffeine and my workout in the morning, I become one of them scary people out on the streets. So I don't need masks to go trick or treating if I don't get my workout in.
Great, Todd. So, how often are you speaking directly with clients and interfacing with them?
Pretty much every day, actually. So I'm usually on our incoming calls for sales opportunities with potential new customers, and also still work with a lot of our current customer base on, what do they have in place, what do they need, helping design solutions to move their cybersecurity and just pretty much move their business forward.
Awesome. So, as far as dealing with scary client stuff, you're on the front lines there and having to deal with what they see all the time.
Yes, definitely.
So when you're working with customers, what do you see customers struggle with when they're reaching out to us or when they're calling us?
So primarily what we're hearing today, whether it's a potential new customer or an existing customer, is really just they're concerned about their security. One of the big questions that we're hearing is, am I protected? Or when it's a potential new customer, I don't know what I have. So what's really happening is a lot of the business owners, IT managers, directors, cybersecurity, you name it, they're seeing and hearing about all their peers in the same industry that they are and other industries across the country, across the world at this point, dealing with cyber attacks. And they just want to make sure that their stuff's good. They're secured, they're resilient, they're able to come into work, go home, sleep at night, and not stay awake, concerned that they're not going to have an environment when they get in the next day.
And I think statistically, just about everybody's been hacked now. So
pretty much, yes.
Everybody has dealt with some kind of incident, whether it's just a business email compromise or ransomware. Ransomware is so common that it's impacted pretty much everybody's life now. I think if you don't receive a breach letter, in the mail at least once a month, it's an off month, so it's kind of commonplace now, and so I guess the sentiment that you're getting the questions, am I protected and stuff, is really coming from that probably.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Awesome.
That's what we're hearing is everybody, it's a scary world. It's not just Halloween, it's a scary world when it comes to the digital side of things. So yeah, everybody's scared. Everybody's worried that, they're the next target.
Mm-hmm. And that am I protected question always kind of triggers me also, because it's like it's a infinite spectrum here. And are you perfectly secure? There is no perfectly secure, and the amount of investment money-wise that you put in is almost an asymptote. It's like perfectly secure is here, and you can keep investing more and more money and never quite get there and just never reach the that goal, but I know if we're getting people along that spectrum, if we're getting people more towards secure, that's really our goal, to make things a little bit harder for the threat actor and make it not as easy for them just to walk in the door and take what they want from a business.
Exactly, exactly. It's nothing's bulletproof today.
Mm.
With, how things are, everybody's shifting cloud-based, the risk, the vulnerabilities, they're always going to be there. You're never going to be 100%. So,
And when you're dealing with new clients coming in or calling in or just new leads, what kind of clients are they, and who are you talking to?
it's a mixture of everyone. So we're hearing directly from business owners, directors of IT, security leads, you name it. And from a business side, it's everywhere. It's across the full spectrum. We're dealing with large enterprise all the way down to the mom and pop 3 user shop down the road. Everybody's hearing about it, everybody's seeing it, and everybody's concerned, especially those smaller ones, to be honest, because they've got their life savings invested into what they have, and they want to make sure that it's secured and it's going to be there for them.
And I think it's something that is almost a wake up call that's finally hitting the small businesses. For a long time, I was, you know, preaching about ransomware and trying to tell everybody and running, seminars through the, local chamber of commerce and SBDC and all kinds of stuff, trying to tell it. And it was almost like just ignorance, like I was being ignored by everybody. Like, oh, it's not, it affects Target, Walmart, and Home Depot, and not your mom and pop, shop. And I remember talking to an eye doctor and them asking me during the appointment, like, "Oh, this won't affect me, right?" And I'm like, "No, this affects everybody." So, what are your thoughts about that kind of sentiment about among small businesses?
I've seen it, I've heard it as well, and I think it comes down to that same mindset. Oh, well, this won't happen to me. But now what's happening is there is a shift where, with everything being more publicized, the information being more accessible online, even the smaller business people are starting to actually see that, hey, their peer that was right down the street is no longer in business because they got hit with a cyber breach and it put them out of business, or it cost them so much that they're struggling today and not sure if they're going to stay in business. So it really doesn't matter the size of your business anymore. I mean, we've even gotten calls from residentials that got hit with a ransomware attack. And I mean, if you use a computer, if you have a digital footprint of any kind, you're a target. You're susceptible to some kind of an attack, whether it's an email phishing attempt that's going to gain access to your bank account, or something else that's going to gain access to your business environment that's going to just take it over.
And in relation to like where they are in the breach life cycle, when do you think that they're calling us? Is it usually because they've been breached, or is it usually that they're scared because they saw something on the news? Like, what are most of the calls, that you're fielding? I guess, what are you seeing out there?
We are actually seeing a little bit of both. We're seeing it across the board where, uh, obviously, preferably, we want to talk to you before there's a breach because there's plenty of stuff that we can do to help you out and help make sure that it doesn't happen to you. But we do get those calls where, they're reaching out to everybody they can find online or find available because they got breached. They need some help getting cleaned up, whatever, they don't know where to start. So we are seeing and getting calls from everybody, whether it's, small business, large enterprise, partners, whatever, we get pulled in all across the board, to help out with breaches.
Now, I know everybody's kind of in a different place. They have some people have some security tools, some don't. Like some have some investments and have a previous service provider, some don't. And some people are just coming into this new. But when you're working with a business, let's say it's, a small to mid business, but it's not super small, but they're new to us. What are some of the suggestions or some of the conversations that you have regarding what the easiest fixes are? What's your approach?
So, there's plenty of different ways or different things that you could do, as a business owner to lower your risk and not become really subject to what they call a drive-by ransom threat. So, first thing that we are normally talking to people about is EDR. There's plenty of different flavors out there. It's kind of like ice cream. Do you want vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, whatever? We utilize SentinelOne for our customers. It's listed one of the best, but there's others like CrowdStrike and actually even Microsoft Defender will serve the same purpose. But basically, it kind of starts with that EDR because EDR is really going to be that first line of defense. It's going to be there to not just detect known malware that gets into your environment, but also detect other threats based on different behavioral characteristics that are seen and known to be kind of like a ransom attack. Um, once we have that EDR in place, you want to manage it, make sure there's a cybersecurity team kind of managing it, maintaining it, all of that, because otherwise it just becomes another antivirus. And if it's not managed, it's not updated, it's not watched, you're going to miss something. So once you have all that in place, I mean, the next step is really multi-factor authentication. I know a lot of people have heard that term and a lot of people use it, sometimes not even realizing what it actually is. But really, what we do is we strive to implement that across the organization. And what that's going to do is put that second layer of authentication in place so that if a threat actor is trying to break into your account, if you have that multi-factor, it's going to prompt you unless they can find a way to interrupt that chain and receive that prompt for that multi-factor. So what we normally use there is either a combination of Duo and another product or just going Microsoft Authenticator, kind of determined based on the environment that we're coming into or that the customer is using. Um, those are really, the two first main defenses against a breach. And to be honest with you, Microsoft is actually starting to require multi-factor authentication for all of their cloud products and services. I think that's early next year is actually when it's going to be fully required. So those are, like I said, those are kind of the basics, two steps to follow. And then, from there, we're looking at really that business resilience, making sure you have air gapped, immutable backups in place that if for some reason, like we said, nothing's bulletproof, if it gets through, if something happens, we have your data secured in a place that they can't get to. We can hit the restore button and get you back up and running.
Awesome. Now, as far as MFA goes, a lot of people say they have MFA, and then when we dig in, really they don't, or they have it on just a few people or a few services. Is there kind of a mindset that you have around MFA, or a way that you look at customers that have MFA and their services and application and decide what needs MFA and really what having MFA means to a company?
Yep. So you hit the nail on the head right there. Is MFA, having MFA can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different companies, but primarily what we do is we strive to enforce it across the board. So if you have Office 365, Google Workspace, the two primary email sources, enforce MFA across the board. Every mailbox that you have, every license that you have, make sure it's turned on, make sure it's enforced, make sure the users are using it. Outside of that, VPNs. That's one thing that kind of gets overlooked a lot from businesses. If you have a firewall and you have remote users, you still have an on-premise environment with servers that they need to access. They're utilizing a remote access VPN client. What we do is we make sure multi-factor authentication is in front of that client and connection as well. Because then, once you're getting in, we're verifying that that user is in fact the user they say they are when they're connecting to the environment. Because once they're connected, they've got access to most of the environment. So those are the two main things. Outside of that, obviously anything else that you can put it on. Bank logins, ERPs, CRMs, pretty much anything that's cloud-based today has the ability to turn it on.
Yeah, and it's something that, if they don't have it integrated with like their 365 and stuff, we can set up that SSO for them so that it can, Microsoft Authenticator or Duo can do that MFA for them. when they go to log in to Salesforce, it's integrated. If it's integrated with Azure AD, it's triggering whatever MFA mechanism is set up there. So, I think that we don't I think companies shouldn't just stop at email. They need to hit any method of remote access like VPN. But also, like any place your data lives, and nowadays when everybody's in the cloud and using Salesforce and other solutions, um, you know, you have a lot of data there and a lot of precious information. So you don't want that just to be hacked and harvested. So yeah, so we can apply it everywhere. But yeah,
Yep.
email and remote access VPN, that's table stakes at this point. Absolutely.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when
Those
you're
are the
talking about,
two. Those are the two big ones that we see that are actually usually where the threat starts,
mhm.
especially email. You know, so putting it in front of email really helps kind of stop that from happening.
And you had mentioned immutable backups. Can you kind of explain why the immutable backups are so important compared to like companies like, hey, I have Veeam or I have Commvault or something, and I have a great backup solution. Do we need to throw that out? What's our approach there, and what are we getting with this immutable air gap backup solution?
So the immutable backup piece, that comes down to the business resilience. And the way we handle immutable backups is, the backups are in the cloud, they're untouchable, they're unchangeable. So what happens a lot of times in a breach is, you have the threat actor, they start with a phishing attack, they gain somebody's credentials, they're now able to get through the first line of defense. Maybe MFA wasn't turned on, and then they kind of work their way into the actual environment. Once they get into the environment, they're looking for everything, including those backups. So if you have Veeam, Veeam sits local. Veeam sits on the network. There's a local storage, there's a server that's managing it, you name it. Most likely, that Veeam instance was also set up by somebody that sits locally in the environment, an IT director, manager, you name it, whatever, that's set up. Therefore, the credentials actually sit on the network as well. So when these threat actors are getting in, they're looking for C-suite credentials, they're looking for IT director, help desk, whatever, somebody that has access keys to the castle, because then those people most likely have access to the backups. Once they gain access to the backups, they can destroy everything. They can stop them from functioning. They can gain access to the data stores. They can destroy the data stores. So having that immutable backup that's offsite, it's cloud-based, it's untouchable, unchangeable, really prevents that from actually happening. What we do that kind of takes it a step farther is we air gap the credentials as well. So as I was saying, with the way the attack's happening and the threat actors getting access to credentials that then gives them access to the backups, we manage those backups. We hold the keys to them. They're in a secured vault. So in order for a threat actor to gain access to your backup system, if you're using our solution, they would have to attack you and us at the same time, because you don't actually have access to the system. We do that on purpose, and we hold the keys to it separate of your environment. So there's no way the threat actor can gain access to those credentials, gain access to the backup system at all. That's really that immutable and air gap piece, where it's fully separated from your environment and it's fully secured from your environment. So then what ends up happening is threat actor gets in, they find your Veeam, they find your Commvault, they find data, whatever you're using, they destroy it. Then they, release the payload, you get encrypted, and you get the ransom note. Well, now you had our solution in place. Cool. You don't have to pay that note anymore. We can hit the restore button because it's not touched and it's fully disconnected. We can restore it locally. We can restore it to an Azure instance, whatever the case is. So that's really where the beauty and the whole point of that immutable, disconnected, air-gapped backup comes in.
So it sounds like our air gap backup solution is one of the solutions that you would recommend And I mean, I agree. Like, if I'm a business owner, I want to put in a solution that is going to let me bounce back after an attack. Everything else may be prevention, and it may work, it may not work from a prevention point of view. But at least if I have an immutable backup solution in place, I'm able to get my business back up and running.
Yep.
So to me, that's like step one. you know, um, at the very least, take this, and then
Yes.
we want to layer in the other stuff, which is very important: MFA and MDR, EDR, stuff like that. But what other solutions from Airiam are you recommending right now?
So, Airiam offers a full list of solutions, and we actually have the ability now to customize the solution to meet the needs of that business that we're talking to. But in all honesty, what I would really recommend to start, if you come in, you don't need IT support, you have an in-house team, whatever the case is. What we're looking at then is your security posture. We're looking at, do you have EDR, MDR? We can put EDR, MDR in standalone. We'll manage it, whatever the case is. We can expand that to fully utilize the extended detection and response to monitor, AD, your cloud environment, network logs, whatever you have. Then, we kind of just keep expanding that solution to really fit what the business needs. If you have multi-factor already turned on with 365, that's fine. Everything's cloud-based. Okay, cool. Let's make sure single sign-on is enabled. Let's put authenticator in front of everything. From there, like I said, we have the ability to custom tailor this solution to include the EDR, MDR, multi-factor, zero trust, penetration tests, you name it, across the board. Um, that's what we would do. Obviously, as we kind of already discussed, we're also looking at putting those immutable air-gapped cloud backups in place because nothing's bulletproof. Nothing's going to stop every single threat from happening. That gives you the ability to bring your business back up, be resilient, and continue working.
Ty, if I'm a business and let's say I have 20 employees and one server, and I call you and say, hey, some of my peers are talking about getting pen tested, and some of our contracts and customers ask us how often we're pen tested, and cyber insurance is asking us about pen testing. But to me, I'm like, I don't see where my business needs a pen test because we only have a couple people and we only have one server and a firewall. Like, oh, what's there to do? What's your, do you have a solution for a small business that's asking about pen testing and kind of needs an affordable way to do it without looking for an enterprise solution?
Yes, we do. So what we actually do is we have a couple different ways that we would handle a pen test. And, that was my next piece that I was going to mention, as well as just making sure that we recommend running that penetration test. Whether you have us do it, whether you have somebody else do it, just make sure it's done. Um, what we recommend at least is an annual pen test. If you can do quarterly, that's great, but at least an annual pen test. And that's what most cyber insurance carriers are requiring now as well. When it comes to those smaller environments, what we actually utilize an autonomous pen test, which it's low cost, easy to run, quick. What it does is it goes through, runs the vulnerability scan, finds what you have for vulnerabilities. Even if you only have one server and a couple workstations, you still have an environment that's going to have vulnerabilities. That could be in your firewall, it could be in your configurations on your network, on your server. There might be something in the firewall that's allowing, an app to be published outside through that server, whatever that case is. So that penetration test is going to find those vulnerabilities, but then it's also going to attempt to exploit them. And then once that's completed, it gives us a full review of what it found, what it was able to do with those vulnerabilities, and how far it would have been able to go. So if we were to have been able to escalate privileges through Active Directory, if we would have been able to plant ransomware, anything along those lines, it's going to give us that summary, tell us what we could have done, And then it's going to also pinpoint and show what we can do to remediate those. So when you're talking smaller businesses, when you bring up the word penetration test, most people are thinking, oh, that's going to be like $20,000. Now, something like this we can run in a small environment very cost effectively. I mean, we're talking $2,000 to $3,000 maybe to run a full penetration test, grab all the information, have a full formal report. And then the way that we actually handle it as well is if you have an internal team or you're already working with another service provider like us, that's fine. We'll do the work. We'll do the heavy lifting. We'll get the report. We'll hand it over. If you want them, your current provider or your in-house team to do the remediations, that's fine. We give you the information. We give you the steps to remediate, so you can go ahead and do that. Obviously, we're able to help you out there too. We can do the whole project to do the remediation as well.
That's something worth drilling into that you mentioned here, and I think it's kind of something that's unique about us. Let's say they have an existing service provider.
Mhm.
Is that something that we can work with well? And is that something where, you know, and if they have an internal IT team, is that something we can work with well? I know a lot of MSPs, kind of want to unseat everybody else involved in the picture, and a lot of internal IT gets threatened when you're bringing in an MSP because they think that they're going to lose their job.
Mhm.
Really, kind of, can you kind of just expand on how we treat that?
Yeah. So we have a full co-managed solution basically that we can build out in those instances. And to be honest with you, a lot of times we actually prefer it that you have an in-house team, because what that allows you is that gives you somebody that's on site, um, front line. Basically, they can do the prime or be the primary on the first ticket that comes in, do the triage when there's an incident or something coming in from one of their employees, and then we're here to escalate. So what we do in those environments is whether you have another service provider that's doing certain services, like maybe the other service provider is monitoring the servers and the workstations and doing that help desk for you, but they don't really do cybersecurity. That's fine. We'll fill in that gap and we'll do the cybersecurity. We work hand in hand with the other provider. Same with if you have an in-house team. You have an in-house team, okay, they're going to handle the help desk. Anything that they want to escalate to us, that they want to offload to us, we can take over. We can manage the servers for them. Maybe you have a couple, new techs just out of school, don't have the full experience to run Active Directory, everything else. We can handle that for you. They can be the frontline help desk and then escalate tickets to us as they need. So really, we can build that out however it makes sense for that customer. So what we normally do is we'll run a responsibility matrix during that initial conversation process. What that does is it really delineates who's responsible for what. If it's us responsible for everything, if you have a third party that's going to handle the servers and the network, and we're going to handle the cybersecurity. If you have an in-house that's going to handle the workstations, and we're going to handle the servers, network, and cyber, whatever the case is, we build that out so then it's written out. Everybody knows what their responsibilities are. That's the key to that co-managed environment. So there's no finger pointing, there's no stepping on toes, whatever the case is.
I think that that is something that I've seen us do super successful, and we're really unique at that in that we want to work with those other teams. We love working with other MSPs, MSSPs. If somebody else is handling security and we're pen testing, and if we're handling backups, but somebody else is doing on-site IT support, like we're good at those kind of combinations and fitting in where we need to. And so, that's something that I think is not something that's realized by a lot of people. And I think that's something that is really different about us compared to a lot of companies.
And that you kind of mentioned it there. I just want to touch on it when you said about, maybe they have another security provider, but we're doing the pen testing. You know, we love doing that. We're here to help out. We're here to pinpoint things. We're not here to unseat somebody else. So what we do is really it's more along that trust but verify. You trust that your other provider is handling everything and has you in a good spot. We're here to just verify it. We're not here to take their place. We're here to verify it. We can run those penetration tests. We can also do a full 365 cloud test configuration. We can do it on Google as well, where we come in kind of like a pen test. We're finding vulnerabilities in the configurations that may have been handled by somebody else. We're not pointing fingers saying you did this wrong. We're just, helping identify where there's improvement that could help secure your environment. And then we hand over those reports. If you want us to help moving forward, we're happy to. If you like your current provider, you want to keep them, you want them to do the work, that's perfectly fine. Here you go. That's one thing that's a little bit different than us. And that's what also kind of eases those conversations with cyber security leads, IT leads, all that. We're just here to be a helping hand, a resource, basically. We want to help. We want to make sure your environment's good. You want us to just do that check. We're here to help verify things. That's it.
Absolutely. Well, Ty, I think that, given that today is Halloween, going forward, you're going to have to be a little scarier than you are now.
I understand. I thought the mask was good.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You're going to have to level up your scariness, make some people cry today. Hopefully, when you're taking the kids out trick-or-treating, that you're able to scare the people at the houses as well. And be as creepy as possible. But anyway, thanks so much for your time today. This was a great discussion. I hope everyone who's listening has a great Halloween and stay safe out there tonight. Please subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. New episodes are typically coming out every other Wednesday. For more information on Airiam, visit www.airiam.com.